want you to watch a clipping from Rope, discuss the mise en scène. This is the opening title sequence. Observe that it is based on a play by Patrick Hamilton, and then it was adapted in a screenplay by Arthur Lawrence. Okay. Comments. Music, the opening, think of the way the movie opens and then what it leads you into. Okay, so typical Hitchcock style. What is it telling you? It's a, when the movie opens, what scenes do we see? Street scene?
Yeah, but the elite of market area.
Okay.
Cantilever, the
Okay. What else?
The calmness.
The calmness. Okay. What else? A lady pushing a stroller down the street. It's a normal regular day, just like any other day. By the time the titles end, we also see a policeman helping two children crossing the road. That means it's a very normal kind of a society, very peaceful, harmonious, and then this is juxtaposed. And why is David killed? For no reason. It's just an experiment, a social experiment, a Darwinian experiment, survival of the fittest. And they, on a good day, they find, on a very ordinary good day, they find a friend of theirs who was the most apt subject for this kind of experiment. They don't have any hostility, there is no reason for committing this crime. You understand that? So, that is Hitchcock. Okay. Juxtaposing something, two very radically opposite scenes and bringing out the difference. It is an ordinary day, ordinary human beings are doing their business, and then you have two people who think they are extraordinary and they have every right to kill a fellow human being just because they want to carry out this kind of experiment. And we are also told later on, if you have watched the movie, which is the philosophy implicit in the movie? Nietzsche's idea of Superman. Okay, there is a Superman, okay, not the Superman, the superhero Superman, but a being which is intellectually and culturally superior to other beings, and that is Nietzsche's definition, philosophy of Superman. Darwin also says the same thing, that is the society is based on the principle of survival of the fittest. What else did you see? The music, it leads you into something. Okay, so from something very, giving you the ordinariness of this day, it takes you into something more sinister. That is the kind of music. Now let us talk about the set and the props, most important. The prop, the chest. Okay, what else?
The rope and the glass.
The rope and the glass, the bottles, and what else?
Crystal set,
Yeah,
which goes with the Harvard undergraduate
character.
image that
Yes,
we have.
they have a taste for the better things of life. What about the New York skyline? Yeah, what does it tell you? What time of the day it is?
Evening.
Because they say, so what a lovely evening. He doesn't say what a lovely morning or a day. He says it's very clearly stated, lovely evening. Perhaps it's 4 or 5 in the evening, and everything happens in real time, remember that. Okay. So the passage of time is clearly stated there. And Hitchcock is telling you it's happening in real time, because that's what, see, remember, Rope was a big experiment for him, a very successful experiment for him. He wanted to make the movie in real time, and something else he did with the editing part of it, that we will talk about later. Okay. Then the gate subtext, that is important. You have to understand that the author Patrick Hamilton was the writer on whose play the movie is based on. He was known homosexual. Arthur Laurentiis, who adapted the play into a screenplay, was also a homosexual. The two actors, okay, and this is very important, John Dell and Granger, Philip and Brandon, they are also known homosexuals, British actors. So the word gay, because you know you are still talking about the code days, yeah, so it's never ever implicitly stated, explicitly stated, but it's there, the subtext is there. The two men live together, they are throwing a dinner party together, they are going for a holiday together, and we are also told later in the movie that Brendan is going to introduce Philip to his mother, and he is going to sponsor Philip's music lessons, and is going to initiate his big concert, his life, his career into concert piano.
But in this film, it's stated, I forgot the name of Joan Chandler's character. Not the David's fiance.
David is not homosexual.
No, David's fiance.
And where he says that you dated me once. Yeah. Yes, yeah. But you see, but he was never really interested in her. Who is he emotionally more involved with? Obviously Philip. He is very flippant about his very passing relationship. He must have dated her for a while, and that's about it. You have to maintain a facade of having a normal kind of life. So he does say that. I remember that before before Kenneth there was me, and now after Ken it's David. Yes, that implication is definitely there. However, it does not mean that he was in a very serious relationship with her. He is definitely in a very serious relationship with Philip, and he is forever trying to control Philip. So that's how you read into mise en scène. Anyway, the movie is so rich in mise en scène that it has to be watched over and again. Yeah, so canonization of Hitchcock as an auteur by French New Wave critics. We all know that Hitchcock in his homeland, in his own home turf, was never recognized. You know, the kind of respect or recognition he deserved was never accorded to him. We have already talked about it. But the French New Wave critics were instrumental in building his reputation. And we are talking about the usual French critics, Besant, Romer, Chabrol, Godard and Truffaut. And Truffaut has also famously written a book, not just written a book but interviewed Hitchcock, Truffaut on Hitchcock. It's a series of interviews. I recommend that you please go through that. Everything is available online. And Hitchcock was one of the first directors to whom they applied the theory of auteurism. Hitchcock's innovations and visions have influenced a number of filmmakers and directors, and we are soon going to look at his legacy as well. And Hitchcock was one of the foremost filmmakers who started a trend for film directors to control artistic aspects of their movies without being answerable to the film's producers. So this is one of the foremost examples of a filmmaker trying to take control over the product rather than the producer. So the name above the title. Francois Truffaut's book, or interview rather, and it has come out in the form of book also, written with Helen Scott in 1966. It played a very important role in canonizing Hitchcock and promoting the director's authorial identity. Hitchcock was almost always involved in every aspect of filmmaking. He decided who should star in his movies. He decided who should be the screenwriter. Remember, there are very few Hitchcock movies which are based on original screenplays. He never wrote a screenplay. Most of his films are adapted. We have already spoken about his adaptation of Rebecca and Birds based on Daphne du Maurier's works. Strangers on a Train. Who is the author? Patricia Highsmith, who later on wrote the very successful Vimal, Patricia Highsmith. The Ripley work, Talented Mr. Ripley. Okay. So, Patricia Highsmith is more or better known for her Ripley work rather than Strangers on a Train. Birds, no one was aware of its existence till Hitchcock took the story in his hands. So, he would develop the screenplay, but would it is very doubtful whether he actually wrote an original screenplay. Also influenced the soundtrack and the visual style. And if you look at a still, one of the posters of Psycho, then you see where else would you find director's picture so prominently displayed on the poster. And what is it telling you to do? Be on time. Okay, don't be late. That's Hitchcock telling you what to do. Okay. And no, I mean it was never done before Hitchcock. A director displaying his own photograph, splashing his photograph all over the posters. Otherwise, we have seen how star dominated the entire situation the scene was. Again, look at this is a poster from Rear Window, and you have Hitchcock. So, this is Hitchcock's Rear Window. So, if you could digest Psycho, then this is going to be more nerve rattling. And then here you have Rope, which says that nothing ever held you like Alfred Hitchcock's rope. So, you see, this is Hitchcock holding you. I am the maker, I am in control. A very clear and strong message. Some of his most accepted aesthetics, features of aesthetics, invariably making a cameo appearance. He is there. Is he there in Rope? He is one of the people crossing the street. Mise known for mise Vertigo today is associated with the color green, and if you watch the movie, there is so much of green and red in the movie. You do listen to Vertigo's soundtrack. Go online today, go to YouTube, listen to Vertigo's soundtrack. It was so innovative for those days. All those electric instruments unheard of those days. Bernard Herrmann, North by Northwest, Vertigo also, Psycho and Marnie, and of course new wave Hollywood directors, so impressed they were by Hitchcock that who famously used Bernard Herrmann? Taxi Driver. Scorsese for Taxi Driver literally brought Herrmann out of self-imposed retirement, and Herrmann said, who are you? I mean, I am used to working with the likes of Hitchcock, and what are you giving me? I have worked with James Stewart and on Vertigo, and the classy Mr. Cary Grant on North by Northwest, who would invariably wear all these Gucci suits, and you are giving me a movie about a taxi driver. So, no way I am going to do it, but then Martin Scorsese had his own, he would have made an offer he couldn't refuse, and therefore we had Bernard Herrmann's, and it's a very haunting score in Taxi Driver. Miklas Rosa in Spellbound, okay, it's also a very surreal movie starring Gregory Peck and Ingrid Bergman, and some scenes, some stills from Spellbound, ostensibly a love story, Gregory Peck, Ingrid Bergman, and in this movie he collaborated with the surrealist artist Salvador Dali and created that famous dream sequence where hero is being psychoanalyzed. And I am not going to be a spoil sport, I will not tell you why the hero is being psychoanalyzed and what's the how does the movie end, but here in this particular still you can see very surrealistic close-ups of an eye, dream state or dream-like state. Gregory Peck being psychoanalyzed. And this was a scene, this was created by Salvador Dali in collaboration with Hitchcock. Now coming to the movie that we have already talked about, Rope, and we have already discussed how the opening of Rope is something depicting a very ordinary day, a very regular kind of day, and then what happens subsequently. So if you look at this particular still, what's the mise en scène like? Setting the dining table, but what's the dining table?
Chest.
The chest. So feeding off on David's grave. That's the that's something that James Stewart character says at the end, that you made us eat off his grave. Remember? And see how beautifully the scene is set up. It's an apartment, but not a very huge apartment. It has just a very limited number of rooms, and you can, through this point or through this perspective, you can see the rest of the apartment till the kitchen. Setting up the table and the New York skyline, and as the day closes you can see the skyline also getting more and more darker and the lights coming up. And it was not, the movie might have been, it gives you the impression that is shot in real time, but of course Hitchcock constructed this set. So it is not the original New York skyline, remember that, it is a set, and it must have taken him a huge amount of resources and effort to recreate the New York skyline. Metonymy as mise en scène, several times you see close-up shots of hands. This is of course James Stewart. This is the one of the climactic sequences where James Stewart comes with this rope. When does he come up with this scene, with this rope?
While they are preparing to go,
yes.
place, and he comes back again.
Yeah, and this rope, as we are told, it has already been given away to David's father. He has bought some books from Brendan, and Brendan very sadistically ties the books with the same rope with which he has killed Mr. Kentley's son, David. And James Stewart, when he returns to the apartment under the pretext of retrieving his cigarette case, he brings this rope, and that's the thing that gives away the entire game, because Philip, who is already at the edge, now just completely crosses it and confesses that yes, we did it. That is Hitchcock in the background. He is not just the person who crosses, but you can also see his face all lit up by the neon lights. Okay, so that is one instance of very innovative use of mise en scène. And then this is something that I often refer to, the kiss in Notorious, and we are told during the Hays Code the maximum length duration of a kiss was 3 seconds. Okay, so 3 seconds, but what they did was to splice the long kiss with snatches of dialogue, with pieces of dialogue. So actually it is a 30 seconds kiss, but then it is broken into several parts. So that is a kiss between Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman. I think this movie is also referred to in Rope, remember? David's aunt, who is one of the guests, and she says, I just watched a movie with Cary Grant and that Bergman woman, and it's, what is it called? She says something, that's something, yes, that's Notorious. The long take in Rope, and now this is something that all of you should understand very clearly, because this is the way Hitchcock played with the conventional ideas of editing. Okay, what did he do? Okay, so Rope is seen as a denial of the standard conventional traditional editing process, a kind of negation or repudiation of its importance and power. Generally, editing means having several shots and takes, but here There are lengthy takes. And did you notice anything unusual in the editing of the movie, if you have watched the movie? The way it's edited. While I was watching the movie very recently for this class, and I just thought what's going, because I had long take sequence in mind. Did you notice anything unusual?
There's an illusion of the movie being continuous shot. Right?
It's not an illusion, it is continuously shot, not the entire movie, but it has long takes, 10 to 11 minutes, okay, which is very unusual. But I am talking about an unusual scene in the movie, which gives you an impression that this is not something which would happen in a normal movie. The camera takes you behind Brandon's back 2 times in the movie, and his blue suit fills up the screen. And you wonder why is he doing that? It's just he's trying to, he has cut the shot, he has cut the take, but he doesn't want the audience to note that. It's an experiment that works. Okay. So, at the same time, the presence of the cut, despite his illusion, he gives an illusion, as Vimal rightly points out, that it's not actually, the entire movie is not actually shot in one long take. There are cuts, but he gives the illusion. And this could be seen as the definitive test and proof of the very centrality that Rope seems to deny. We will continue with our Hitchcock. Thank you very much.